So many smart people in the room, so many. I'm just a simple Montana boy who is kind of wondering if a passenger pigeon is going to look out through that window or a T-Rex. So thank you, Colossal. What an impressive facility and what a great group of classy people. So after a childhood filled with Shasta soda and Wonder Bread, I moved away from my birthplace near Yellowstone National Park to pursue a PhD involving computational linguistics and dead languages, and then a career in tech. And decades later, I moved back and was drawn into the study of animal communication and conservation tech. It was part fascination and part frustration. The tools we were using, GPS collars, trail cams, acoustic recorders, felt frozen in time compared to the innovations I had seen in Silicon Valley. Now I'm here to share our journey to build a better camera trap and the 4 sparks or reasons that lit the fire. Now a caveat for you all lawyers out there. The views I express are mine and mine alone and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Park Service. So with that aside, as we all know, the media has been talking a lot about the use of artificial intelligence to decode animal communication. And that is the moonshot of the Cry Wolf project. Why do wolves howl? You would think by now we would have an answer to that, but we don't, is my argument. And it might be fun to debate that later over bourbon with Mike. So the Cry Wolf Project is a bioacoustics initiative that Dr. Dan Staler and I launched in 2023 with various collaborators, including Joanna and Mike, who are in this room, and Colossal recently joined in as a supporter. In 3 years, we've built the largest archive of wild wolf vocalizations on Earth. We've logged 200,000 hours of audio. 7,000 wolf vocalization events, each ranging from 10 seconds to an hour, spanning 10 packs inside and outside of Yellowstone National Park. I'm starting to go blind looking at all those spectrograms, hence the eyeglasses, but it's been one of the greatest joys of my life, such as listening to a wolf barf, fart, and snore, things we've never heard before. Now, decoding wild wolf communication is military intelligence sort of work. It's tough. We're not able to plug in a video camera at a captive wolf facility, so along the way, we've been innovating on existing tech, some of which I'll tell you about today, and some of my philosophies around it. Now, that's me going old school in the Serengeti of America, channeling how wolf researchers of the 1960s and 70s had to study wolf communication. A parabolic mic, a cassette recorder with tapes, a big cassette recorder, and a desk full of electronics and different hairdos, just to turn sound into a paper spectrogram. And most importantly, you had to be there in person when the wolf howled. Now those magnetic tape reels held about 2 hours of audio. It'd take about 45,000 of them to store what we are gathering annually. You'd need a school bus to hold all of them. Unwound, they would run around the planet, and we store the equivalent audio on a $400 hard drive of this size. For the first time, we can study wild wolf communication across entire landscapes 24/7 by 365 with relatively low-cost ARUs or autonomous recording units. We now mount them high in trees in Yellowstone because of this animal. That grizzly bear stood up on his hind legs, gently opened the recorder lid, dumped all the batteries out, and left one so we could record his mischief. Now, not long into the project, I wasn't impressed with the ARUs. They were good enough, yeah, they were not great. They were either too big, had poor battery life, fragile mounting designs, or high costs, and they didn't capture imagery. To do that, you needed a trail cam, an entirely separate device with more than 50% of the same internal electronic components as an ARU. And don't get me started about trail cams. First, they have poor audio quality. Worse, false positives. Even the ones built by the big boys and girls at Amazon and Google. Almost all motion detection, even those in certain AI cameras, initially trigger based on passive infrared sensors. They're very low power and cheap, but they're bad at telling grass from a grizzly bear. So we started building these no grass camera traps that filter false positives with 2 different types of sensors, highly secret, and then sends a subset of true positives to the cloud where powerful generative AI can identify everything from a wolf's fur color to a poacher's boot brand. In essence, what I like to say is we created a compression algorithm for visual monitoring in remote landscapes. What we're trying to do is invent a new category of remote surveillance, a multi-sensory recording unit, or MRU. My company calls ours the GrizzCam, and its little sibling, the CubCam, that's the GrizzCam. It's ruggedized, battery operated with environmental sensors, 360-degree sound and audio, and connected and unconnected modes. Its job is to only capture the sound and motion that matters, decreasing labor costs for the wildlife managers. It costs about $1,000 currently, made in our garage, half the price of the 4 equivalent trail cameras and an acoustic recorder that you would need. And with manufacturing at scale, we'll drive that cost in half. Now, trail cams without software is like the iPhone without the App Store. You're looking at our software portal. It lets you manage thousands of devices, millions of events, and trigger custom alerts. So briefly, how do we do this? When GrizzCam detects motion that matters, it sends an intelligent snapshot of the event telemetry data to very powerful cloud-based AI for analysis, something that no battery-powered device in the field can do with general-purpose AI. Now look what it said it found. This is Gemini talking back. Over a short period, a person approaches and interacts with the camera trap device holding what appears to be a firearm while the deer simultaneously walks through the background natural environment. A gunshot was fired 10 minutes later. There's the deer, but where's the person? There's the person on the other side of the camera holding a shotgun, and then it inferred from the audio 10 minutes later that something had happened. And because AI can remember across time and space like humans struggle with, it can find anomalies and make predictions at landscape scale over temporal scale. Now, conservation tech, indeed all of tech that I'm in right now is struggling with this issue, needs to innovate on how and where these devices get manufactured. In the top left, you'll see what we call our flat flex sensor pack. We roll that into a custom configuration in the bottom left, and then we can 3D print this and laser cut it in a lathe wherever we want across the world. Almost every camera trap on the market comes from one country, China. So, now let's get a little less serious. Can our startup pull this off? I don't know. A famous person once said, "I fail in life as much as I succeed." Now, regardless of whether we succeed, this is the controversial part, there is a high probability that someone will. Now, whoever does and whoever owns the majority equity of that company will decide whether biodiversity is a priority or not. And I would argue that we need more Patagonia-like businesses in the world today. We do not need NGOs building tech and then burying it in another proof of concept graveyard. We need their philanthropists to help fund private companies who have business models. And that might be a controversial statement, right, Mike? But I would argue that this is the world we live in right now. So perhaps we should envision a future where conservation tech doesn't constantly depend upon donations, but rather on innovation that pays for itself and rewards the innovators. Now, enough pontificating. Let's get back to wolves. So trail cams are great at studying behavior, but they only have a detection range of 20 to 30 meters. Wolves, elk, and gunshots, they're loud. You can think car horn loud. And we've recorded wolves from over 8 kilometers away, and that's why we're doubling down on acoustics. So we deployed the recorders, shown in the blue push pins, across 6-kilometer grids in the northern range of Yellowstone, roughly a 60-kilometer wide swath you're looking at here. Here are the known breeding packs. And the grid picks up their vocal footprints, recording when they're talking and when they're not. Now the beauty is this is non-invasive or less invasive and low-cost occupancy monitoring. Of course, there's still a place for GPS collars, we know that, but we can also use a wolf's voice and not just their neck, as Matt likes to say. Now that's Dan Staler and Kira Cassidy deploying the first old school ARU in 2023, and a year later we rolled out the full grid of ARUs, which you're seeing here. The last spot you're seeing is aptly named Hell Mountain. Deploying an ARU can burn a full staff person day, so if our MRUs pack more sensors and last longer, we estimate a labor reduction of 60%. This is Hell Mountain.
I see it, Claire. Where? I visualize it. Right there. Yep. Oh, thank God. Oh, we did it.
I love Claire.
Hey, Claire. Hi. The views are gorgeous. Yeah.
Claire can hike like no one else. So eventually the team started to realize I was listening, and they left me messages like this.
I hate you, Jeff.
So this year, we deployed the first MRU at a den site, and we hope to share a pup's first Howl in Apple VR later this year. Now, what makes Yellowstone unique to decoding the Howl is the Wolf Project's 30 years of data, observation logs, genetics, life histories of packs and individual wolves. Each year, a 6-person team goes out into the field twice a year for focused month-long stints, gathering direct observations. Now, as they watch, often from miles away, out there in the distance is an ARU recording what they cannot. And then we pull together those audio recordings with field notes and other data such as GPS locations into a single dashboard, which gives us additional context to decode the wolf howl. But how do you find wolf howls buried in 200,000 hours of recordings? For 3 years, I've had the privilege of doing it by hand, scanning them visually. This is 1 hour of audio on my 42-inch OLED monitor. Those pink blobs here, those are chorus howls. I load 500 hours of sound spectrograms and flip through them like a photo album. Anybody remember the dating app Hot or Not? You'll have to be a little older in the room. Remember that? It's kind of like that. When you spot something interesting, you zoom in, and then you get really good at knowing what a wolf howl looks like. That's how I found these 7,000 vocalization events. Now, using some of this data, various people have been testing different machine learning approaches. I built a CNN-based model 2 years ago, which was okay, but had too many false positives. Amir, one of Joanna's students, is working on an improved CNN. Abhishek from Colossal built a few-shot model based on his work with tooth-billed pigeons. And eventually we'll pick the best approach and build a practical desktop tool for wildlife managers. Next, more controversy. We're going to embed AI acoustic models directly into GrisCam, enabling the holy grail, real-time alerts of specific sounds. Low power, always on chips like the kind used in Amazon Alexa can now detect specific sounds using just 19 milliamps. We're testing it with GrisCam's real-time clock, and the result we hope is real-time alerts of the location of a sound, whether it be a bull elk's bugle or a poacher's gunshot. Now there are loads of ethical questions here, tons of them. We're all aware of it, but this tech is coming. And the question isn't if, but how it'll be used and who gets there first. At least 3 wolves were poached just outside of Yellowstone this year, in a region that drives $500 million of annual tourism economy. So I would ask, who is going to be the Anduril of wildlife conservation? As a quick aside, a fun aside, Yellowstone's Wolf Project team added tiny acoustic recorders called biologgers to some of their collars this year in order to study individual wolf howls.
Here is yearling female from the 8 Mile Pack, 1507F. And history is being made. This is the first Yellowstone wolf to wear an audio logger. This will be recording periodically throughout the winter all the sounds that this animal makes, and hopefully her pack mates, howling, growling, hunting, playing. And then this collar will blow off in the spring and trigger a blow off, and we can get the data back, and it has a GPS collar as well. So I'm pretty excited about this new area of Yellowstone bioacoustic research.
1507F, the first wild wolf fitted with an acoustic biologger ever, was shot outside of Yellowstone, and she made this her last howl not far from where I live. So I'm going to shift and touch upon the 4 practical reasons why we're trying to innovate trail cams. The first is to advance field science. What you're looking at and hearing is a visual representation I created of every sound recorded at a wolf den site during the month of July in 2023. It's every sound, not just wolves. Each row represents 1 day of sound, from midnight on the left edge to midnight on the right, and there's 30 rows. The AI finds patterns in those spectrograms, patterns like a chorus howl right here in the circle. Those blobs of color, those are the birds starting their dawn chorus each morning. And it shifts to the right throughout the month because daylight is decreasing. Now, these devices don't sleep at night like we do, and they've revealed what no human had ever stayed up 24/7 throughout a year to confirm, that Yellowstone's wolves mostly howl at night. Here's another scientific insight from the project. What you're looking at are representations, spectral representations of chorus howls from 4 different wolf packs who border one another in Yellowstone, each with different pack sizes. Curiosity has shown that wolves from one pack can count or estimate the number of wolves howling in a rival pack without seeing them, and they make a decision. If they're outnumbered, they typically run in the opposite direction. If not, they'll typically approach that rival pack. And we're playing around with technology from Google DeepMind to try and see if we can count wolves just from audio recordings and improve census estimates of wildlife. Our second goal is to reward private landowners who create wildlife habitat. Groups like American Prairie Reserve and PERC have tested these payment for presence programs where they compensate ranchers based on trail cam images of wildlife, such as elk, on their land. Now, the idea is plausible. I know ranchers who have signed on, but it doesn't scale. It takes way too much time and labor to process all of those photos. So here I am in a 5th generation Montana rancher, my business partner, testing GrizzCam to see if we can automate the entire process with software end to end. The producer gets a monthly check from an NGO, for example, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, but the producer is motivated to leverage these devices for other operational uses, such as tracking trespassers, livestock, fire, soil health, or even an empty water tank. The third goal is to combat wildlife crime, or any crime for that matter. This map shows an array of recorders in the yellow dots, and with just 3 time synced MRUs, we can triangulate the source of a sound, like those wolf howls that are pinpointed in the red dots. With just 1 recorder, we can get a bearing on the sound. And of course, this has loads of ethical questions. Next up, we want to build an end-to-end real-time alert system for gunshots. Lastly, we want to build the digital wild and spark a fire in the next generation. A Hollywood film without audio, as we know, is flat and forgettable. Science without story, as other speakers have said, is as well. As Dickie Fox, the immortal mentor of who? Jerry Maguire, said, if this is empty, this doesn't matter, right? And there are countless amazing sounds, wild sounds, that just motivate me every day that I could share with you. But instead, I've chosen to play something I believe has never been done before. What you're about to see is a 6-month playback of daily wolf howls from 6 packs across Yellowstone's northern range, a 60-kilometer wide swath of one of the world's premier ecosystems. Each dot is one of our recorders, and when it blinks, it means wolves howled near that location on that day, and this is 60 kilometers. So for the first time, here's our ode to Howl. I hear Mike and Joanna are giving free tours to the Northern Range, so come on up and let them take you out sometime. So thank you for considering some of my outlandish ideas, and I have to give a huge thank you to the Wolf Project team who can't be here and who tirelessly work to preserve and protect Yellowstone for future generations. Thank you.